Hello YouTube, it's Sleepyhead, and this video takes the place of a video that I did about 5 months ago. It shows a better way to go about adding bones into a skeleton for Manuel Bastioni Labs. The old video applied to version 1.4 and earlier, and with version 1.5 of MB Labs, those old techniques no longer work. There's also some licensing issues depending on what you plan to do with your models afterwards, where, if you followed the old techniques, you would run afoul of some copyright issues. These new techniques modify the models after they've been finalized, so that allows you to use the models for pretty much whatever purpose you want to use it for. So I started off by creating a model using MB Labs. I hit randomize once to get it a little bit different than the default character that comes up, and then I hit the finalize button, and this is what I ended up with. Now, before we go any further, there's one thing I want to sort of show you, and that's when you hit finalize on MB Labs 1.5, things don't come out exactly the way you might expect them to. If you go to the skeleton and on the armature, you'll notice that the rest position and the pose position aren't the same here. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go to pose mode. I want to make sure I select all the bones and clear the transform on all. Then that's close, but again, if I hit the difference between rest and pose, I still got an issue. MB Labs 1.5 adds these extra little keyframes in here. So now, to get rid of those, you can either go to the dope sheet or the graph editor and just select everything, get rid of those keyframes. And then the last thing you need to do, we did clear transform, but you also want to do this thing called reset unkeyed. I don't know why, but you do. Because what happens is now when I hit the difference between rest and pose, it doesn't move anywhere. So that means my rest position and my pose, my default, cleared transform pose position is the same. Okay, now I will show you how to add the new bones from your template. And so what you need to do in advance is make a template. So you just make a default Manuel Bastioni Labs skeleton and set it up the way you want it to be set up. Add in your extra bones, set up your inverse kinematics, all that kind of stuff. And then that way, when you get your new model, like this model here, to this stage, you just go and you append your template skeleton like this, and I've called it with IK, inverse kinematics, and there it is. So you can see I've got these extra bones here, and if I go into pose mode, you can see I've got the inverse kinematics with some constraints set up, and what I want to now do is go back to object mode, and I want to transfer the new information, the inverse kinematics and the extra bones, to the skeleton that goes with this model. And to do that, I have this add-on that's called Bone Copy. I'll put a link to that in the description. It's an add-on that I wrote myself for this specific purpose. And when you're in object mode and you've got a armature selected, this little button appears here under Tools. It says Copy Additional Bones. And this will only work if you have two armatures selected. So I'll do that by selecting both armatures here. And it's important the order that you select them in. But if you have the order wrong, you can just undo and set it back and try again. But anyway, I had the order correct that time. I hit copy, and now it's the way I want it. If I shut off my template, you can see that the model now has the additional bones, and all the inverse kinematics are working properly. So I can get rid of my template now because I'm done with it. And the other thing to look at here is now the mesh has separated itself from the skeleton. So I want to bring that down here and set the parent, but I don't want to do with the armature deform. I just want to set object like that, because the mesh already has the armature modifier here. It's still there from before, it just doesn't have the skeleton identified as the object. So now I've, set that back, and now it's the way I want it. If I go to the skeleton and go to pose mode, all my inverse kinematics are working the way I want them to. The only thing that's sort of a drawback here is that this guy's posture is really bad. It's because my default template was shorter than this particular character. So I don't really have a good solution for this. What I like to do is I just grab these handles and put them where I would like them to be for normal purposes. And once I've got them in a place that I like, say like that, whatever, everything's where I want it. What I want to do is I want to add this to my pose library as like a resting or a default pose. So I'll just add that here, add a new pose, we'll call it default. And I think we're all set there. Now we'll copy in the custom vertex groups that I want. That's going to happen on the mesh, of course. And what I did was earlier I had made up another template. In this case, it's a vertex group template, and all it is it's another MB Labs model that has the vertex groups the way I want it. In this case, I added an additional vertex group called the scalp. If I go into, let me hide this one so we can see what we're looking for. If I go into edit mode and I select the scalp, you see it's the scalp right there. That's where the hair goes. I like to have that extra vertex group because I always need it. And so now what I want to do is I want to transfer this from my master to my new character. And since I've got it set up this way, it'll be easy for me to copy, these vertex groups to new characters as I create them without having to define the vertex groups every single time. So let me make this visible again. I'm going to get out of edit mode and I select my character mesh, and we're just going to do this by adding another modifier, a data transfer modifier. And our source object will be my master mesh there. I'm going to copy vertex data, vertex groups, and for vertex mapping, since these meshes are exactly the same in terms of topology, I can choose that. If I try to do the nearest face or nearest edge or nearest vertex, it's not going to work because the two models are different proportions. So I'll get kind of wonky vertex groups. But if I do topology, since they're exactly the same topology, I can transfer it one to the other. Now you should be aware that obviously the male characters have the same topology, so I can transfer vertex groups from one male to another, but the female models have a completely different mesh, so you have to make a new vertex master for those. So anyway, I've done topology, vertex groups, vertex data. I want to replace everything, so all you have to do is press this button here, generate data layers. It does something, then you hit apply, and at this point I can make that invisible, and I can go over here and I see I've got the scalp, and there's one little silly looking thing here. If I go and select the scalp, it selects all the vertices in the mesh, and that might make you panic at first, but it's actually transferred the data properly. If I go into weight paint mode, you can see it's given the scalp a weight of 1 and everything else has a weight of 0. So it's transferred over all the vertices into the vertex group, but just given the ones, that really don't belong there a weight of 0. So there's a really easy way to fix this too. We go into edit mode, and I just want to go down here. There's a weight tools, on tools. If you're in edit mode, go to weight tools, and you can press this button called clear, or clean, I'm sorry. And we can leave the limit at 0 because all I want to do is clean away the vertices that have a weight of 0, not just from the active group, but from all groups. So once I do that, then if I go over here and select the upper arm twist bone, yeah, it only has those that belong in there. If I go back to my scalp, select it, there. So now I've got my vertex groups the way I want it, and if I want to add hair, I can do that and assign it to the proper vertex group here, the scalp. Let's see, scalp, and just turn this to hair. And why is there no hair coming out? Because I'm in edit mode. If I go to object mode, there's all my hair. Oh, that's too long. 1. He's got a lot of hair there. 0.2. There, that's not so bad. And I can go from there and give him hair. So anyway, so in this video I've showed you how to assign, basically make your own custom armatures and easily transfer them into your new characters as you create them. I've shown you how to make new vertex groups again in a master file, so you can easily transfer them into your new characters as you create new characters. And I've shown you a few other little tips about that are unique to MB Labs 1.5. And like I said, I've seen the video, some of the videos for MB Labs 1.6, which is still in process at the moment. And it's going to have a lot of really good stuff here, especially it looks like there's a skeleton that has a lot more advanced inverse kinematics than what I would choose to set up. So I like that, but if you find that, I suspect that these techniques will still be relevant even then, because you may not like the way he sets up his skeletons. You might want to do your own. So these techniques will still be relevant there if you want to use your own custom setups. So I hope you like this video, and feel free to leave any comments. Thanks.